Hey everyone, welcome to this video on energy and foods. This is Alberto from Rebirths Illuminate, and I always wanted to build awareness with how foods can impact our moods, our behaviors, and the energy that's stored up in foods that we eat, that we buy, has an impact to that. Um, so today we're going to just talk about energy in foods and the best ways to maximize um, feeling good spirits, maximize the energy that we have in our intake. Today I have Rachel here. Just to introduce you to Rachel, she's been in the healthcare field for 20 years. She's a degreed licensed nutritionist, dietitian. She made many appearances, television, online media, founder of her company, Nutrition. And throughout those years, she's been advising people on, food intake, diet, supplements, alternatives, all of it, especially pertaining to their health conditions. So thank you, Rachel. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for your time.
Of course, you're welcome. And thank you so much for having me. I think this is such a great topic. I think that, food as energy or food is energy is something we've all thought about, heard, agreed with our whole lives. But the conventional way that food is energy has been sort of thought of as far as like food, like how many calories did you eat? Or what are your macros? and
Yeah.
and that's a very numerical form of energy that and that's sort of the Western way that we see as dietitians, and I'm a registered dietitian, as we see nutrition is through this sort of like numerical aspects. Like I said, the macros and the total calories, and yes, we have numbers and all vitamins and minerals and all the essential nutrients, but it's I think what you and I have started to talk about food as energy has a sort of deeper and more resonant, more full spherical value because
Right.
it's moving energy, and it's also it's more than just a number of calories or number of protein or ratio of protein to fat to carbohydrates. So I think it's an important topic. I love the topic. I've been talking about this sort of thing, different aspects of nutrition for, yes, a full 20 plus years now. And thanks for having me.
Sure. Yeah, and I love that. Like that's my goal today, like that awareness of like diving deeper in conversation of like all the ways that food can store energy, because like you said, food is energy. But first, just to start things off, like nutrition, like that awareness, your whole journey, like how has that been throughout the years? Like that, progression, has it been like, for the better, for the worse? Is it more difficult? I imagine it's a bit more easier now with social media, right?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. It's definitely different. I think it's there's goods and bads, right, to everything. But I've seen the field change a lot, because when I started in my field, I got into nutrition because I was pre-med. I was planning to be a medical doctor, and
Okay.
and I had my own personal experience having to do with food, and I can go through it in depth now or at another time. But bottom line is, it convinced me, my own experience with food and how it really saved and resuscitated my scholarships, my academic and athletic scholarships, which went down because of eating poorly, extremely poorly, might I add, in college. But I was able to redeem myself through nutrition. And I was pre-med, and I realized at that point that nutrition was so freaking powerful that I had to do it. There was no choice, but I never second guessed the choice either, even all these years. So yeah, but back then, I say this all because that was in 1990. I won't tell you, but it was in the 90s.
Yeah.
But late 90s. But it was like I was, and nutrition wasn't even a word back then. I mean, like that people talked,
Mm,
like it wasn't something that people taught. It wasn't a common word in our diet. Like now, it's part of our vernacular. And so
right.
so the awareness for nutrition has grown like immensely, like almost like, and I remember, I think I was telling you about at one point, like how I would, I did community education. I was always education based because I'm from a education based family. My twin's a teacher, my mom's a teacher, my grandfather's a teacher. Essentially, I'm a teacher, but I'm a teacher of nutrition because
Of that.
I also care about medicine and health, and I've always had that. Yes, and that experience obviously tipped me into the natural health direction and the nutritional health direction. But yeah, so it's different. I was telling you that I started in community education, and I used to bring literally projectors, like big projectors. It was me. I had a partner teacher, partner nutritionist, and we had to roll our projector slide, so we could project in a classroom at night in a community education setting. This is in Minneapolis. But yeah, so we're
Wheeling the
educating folks.
projector cards. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like, yeah, it was a huge projector. We had 2 people to move it, literally.
Put in work. You put in that work. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm super old. No, just kidding. No, my point is that I know what the field's done, and back then, it was a totally different conversation because nobody really. It was processed foods are only people don't realize this, but processed foods have really only been popularized. I think we were talking, but well, over the past obviously 100 years, but Kraft Food Company went out of business. I researched at one point they started after World War I, I believe. Don't quote me on exactly these minor facts, but just understand the whole, but basically they went out of business. They had to claim bankruptcy, and then they went back into business for World War II, and then it was off to the races. And that pretty much epitomizes, I say that as a Kraft that epitomizes though the journey of the food industry, because women, during World War I, the men went away to war, and it was, and we needed packaged food for them. So that was that's when we first started. So packaged food came not because of for the women, but for the men who were away.
Wow.
At war. And then obviously when they came back, then, and after the Second World War, what happened was, and that's for Betty Crocker, but when they came back, it was so helpful. Processed foods were so helpful that
so simple and easy.
Iconicized them. Yeah, wow. We iconicized them. So and then of course then we had things like automobiles, televisions happening through the 50s and then into the 70s, 80s. And so really processed foods haven't been super popularized, I would venture to say, until the 80s. Wow. Literally, where it becomes so mainstream. And now, so the landscape of food culture has changed so much. So now, I'm always like a little bit like, I'm not surprised anymore, but at first I was surprised when I was having certain clients like around the age 22, 3, that because it's changed and there was a gap where I hadn't seen that age group, but now I'm starting to see those people again. That when I'm listening to what they're eating, they're literally waking up and deciding where do they want to go for breakfast. So every single meal, and they don't even go to the grocery store, never been to the grocery store.
Wow.
I've had clients, I've never guys that are in their, nothing against guys. I'm just saying it's like normal for a lot of people that have, never gone grocery shopping or don't go grocery shopping, period, as our culture. So basically we're relying on these fast food, on these restaurants, which it's I don't want to label anybody at this point or probably ever, but my point is that, people are getting sicker. Like the millennials are the first generation that's ever in history to be sicker than their parents. Than their parents. So the first ones.
Well, and that's a fact. Like no, not targeting millennials here. Yeah, it's just a fact.
Yeah, I heard it on the community care audio series that I was listening to. Yeah. So
wow.
But the point is that there's an awareness. So there's like a multi thing happening, right? Because there's like a lot more awareness. Like I think I told you, like back in the early 2000s when I was educating about things like gluten, because I was researching myself that, it could cause inflammation in the body and started to be linked to autoimmune diseases and gut diseases and different problems back then. But people had never heard the word gluten because the processed food only started to really come of such a quantity and such a, consistency into the 80s, 90s, and now 2020s. But so things have changed a lot, I guess.
Right.
To kind of summarize, but obviously we could take it into more detail. But yeah, it's changed.
Those are great points, though. I mean, that's like eye-opening. Like the history and how things are now. Unfortunately, I mean, it sounds like it's for the better, but also in a way for the worst.
Yeah. Yeah, and everything can be, sort of tackled, even if it's a problem now. It doesn't have to be a problem forever. So that's why I think we're getting together to talk about this, is because we know there is there's a lot of information out there, but at the same time, there's still a lot of information that needs to be shared.
Yeah,
And, if we can get the same people who have been, a lot of people are coming down with major diseases now around the brain, or just chronic things, problems, whether it's lethargy and fatigue, or whether it's, depression, anxiety. I mean,
yeah,
almost every young person that I know that I speak to tells me straight out they have anxiety. And I think part of that has to do with things like obviously the pandemic. Everyone, that's the first thing everyone says, but
of
it's
course.
true. But all the telecommunications, lack of personal contact, insecurity in our world. There's all these things happening, that would lead anyone to have anxiety as something that they experience regularly.
Of course.
I guess, and I'm not even sure what my point is here, except that as a nutritionist, I always go back to the fact that we can we can offset, create better energy, including anxiety. We can bring that down through foods, or not, consuming as much coffee, for instance. But also that we can start to secure ourselves and our health, since we now know that food is medicine, and that's something that's changed a lot in terms of awareness. Is like when I started, people didn't, again, the word nutrition didn't exist. So
Yeah,
now they're realizing, everyone kind of knows now, that when I talk with people now versus then, they all realize that food is medicine.
yeah,
Ginger, turmeric, and so that's good. So people are really tuning into a lot of good things, and that's fantastic. But
yeah.
but yeah, I think there's still some things to continue on, and there's new problems because of the fact of kind of how our culture has evolved. So
Yeah.
coming, yeah.
And I love that point. I mean, that's what I was getting out of it. Like offsetting, like putting it in balance. Um, as far as like energy from, what's around us and how we perceiving things. But when it comes to food, one point that I want to discuss further from what you mentioned was like the whole process. Right now we're seeing a lot organic, cage-free, grass-fed, that whole thing. Um, what's like what's the biggest point that you would say um would benefit us as people, that as consumers that
Sure.
buys these foods versus a person that just buys like generic or just buys like their favorite brand or whatever,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, I hear you. Yeah, it's so you asked what's the top thing I could kind of share about that, is that that there are a lot of certifications out there, and that there's everything from organic, free, and like you said, free range, which we don't quite always know what that means. That's a big the range is big on free range, FYI, FY is all. But no, there's a big range. But I have a kind of
Sure.
a love hate with healthy food, because I love healthy food, but the question is, what is truly healthy, right?
Yeah.
Does a certification, the stamp, make it healthy? Sometimes maybe they're I don't know all the companies, so I don't know what necessarily all the things are that people do in their farms, and people acquire land, so we don't know always. So maybe that's off point, maybe that's going a little too far, but I guess the point is that that you've heard me make, is that the best food that we can consume is going to be food that we are is close and local to us.
Mm.
I think that that's for a lot of reasons, not just for health and nutrition, um but
From an energy perspective,
from an energy perspective.
precisely, I would imagine is better like local, right? Compared to like this huge
Yeah.
production.
Well, yeah, well, energy, yes. You just said energy, and the first thing that came to me was gas. So, yes, from an energy consumption
Mm,
perspective, it's local is going to be better because it's closer. There's less consumption there. But from an
mm,
energy perspective, in other ways, if we know the person who's raising our chickens, or who's growing our tomato or food, whatever, tomatoes or whatnot, whatever, it, we know that animal, not the tomatoes, but the chickens, and we can watch how they're being treated, and that energy actually affects what's in their milk
mm,
or what's in their eggs. I'm thinking of different animals here. but
yeah.
but yeah, so the energy does matter. Absolutely.
Wow. Yeah. Especially like you said with like the animals like in bulk being, being in production, I'll say they to really be sensitive to viewers, like because we are trying our best to see you. If you come across this video, we want to just really let you know that we just want to bring this knowledge to you, and give you the ugly truth rather than, beautiful eyes, and state what's really happening, what's really going on, to serve ourselves better, as people. Um, that production, it's like sometimes not the best conditions, right? It's like almost inhumane.
Oh, it's torturous. There's torturous conditions happening to animals all over. I mean,
Yeah.
and our food, I mean, our food is, our there's no the energy going into it, is not good. Like I literally have had patients who have food allergies and they have problems, autoimmune problems, and different types of issues here in the US, no matter where they are, but at home generally. And they go to Europe and they can eat all these foods that they were never able to tolerate here in the US.
Wow.
And I think
That's
that
huge.
yeah,
Same thing, but it's just different environment,
bread.
literally.
Yeah, I mean,
Wow.
it's true. It's true. And so the energy, it's not just so simple as like we talked about the, calories. It's not so simple as
Hmm.
bread is bread or an egg is an egg. Those two eggs, went through a lot of different things to become an egg, starting with the chicken's life that had them. So it's food is an interesting thing. I mean, everyone has always known that food is energy, but it's like we're not really thinking about the full effect of what that means
Yeah.
by a food label. And a food label used to be enough, but it's not even enough anymore because, clients who will ask me like, well, what about this brand? What about that brand? And yes, I know apps who will rate different brands, but like I would, before I say what I think is a great quality, I would like to be able to visit and see, like, because an
Mm.
apple isn't, in general in life in every aspect. So it's almost like, again, why is local better? It's not just about trend or coolness or even just gas consumption. It's about doing business. It's about economics, doing business with your neighbors. It's about, being able to see firsthand and know firsthand if a piece of property was, extremely, maybe dumped on for all we know chemicals. And then someone
Yeah.
else bought it and turned it into a farm. But we've lived, staying where you are from is a good thing, I think, at this point in life. Like, I think that that's like the next phase, like kind of like what our grandparents, parents maybe lived, now it's a great grandparents kind of thing. But, those values, like we kind of have to bring it back. Do you know what I'm saying? And food is a
Absolutely.
perfect and an easy way to start, so that's what I'm about. I've practiced as a dietitian in cardiovascular clinic. I've practiced as a dietitian in neuro rehab, and I understand how, the practice is at this point based on my experience, and I understand about the consumer. But I think that it's time to kind of like truly up level, in terms of how we're taking care of our societies. And it all starts, a lot of it starts with our food and putting the good energy inside our own bodies so that we can function at
Mm.
our maximum and we're not just trying to get by. Because we have to change kind of how
Mhm.
we're living, and that's going to take some effort, and it's hard enough to just kind of like get life, like get done everything you need to. Dishes are clean and your sheets are clean and it's bedtime. Like that's
Mhm.
like those are my goals, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
but but now it's like we may have to start to incorporate some new methods of food production for ourselves.
And at least
you
have a
know
focus on that.
what's that?
Yeah. And at least have like a focus on that rather than like
Start
kind of
thinking about
being
it.
comfortable with like kind of routine based, especially if our bodies doesn't agree with that, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's time to start thinking about it, having this conversation, hence you and me here today. And it's a conversation, but I think needs, like, we're kind of in a contemplation mode, pre-contemplation, contemplation, a lot of society, and now it's time to get
Yeah.
into action. And I have a triangle behind me kind of for that reason. It's like action, it's time
Mm.
to get into action. So that means, yeah, think about it a little longer and but we need to start to plant food, and we need to start to, you know, um, make sure we're maximizing our our ability to survive, starting with food as medicine, starting with just food as sustenance, planting roots. It doesn't take much to grow some sweet potatoes in your backyard and some ginger root, maybe plant a lemon tree, depends where you live, but this is something that I can't afford to wait to talk about with people. And
Especially
so
during these days. Yeah.
these
Yeah.
days, because we don't have forever to kind of like get our
Mm-hmm.
shit together, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, it's like I don't know, like,
Things can happen.
I'm thinking of a song like from my childhood, but like, it's just like, at some point the shit goes down, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
When the shit goes down, remember that song? I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, at some point that happens. And I just think it's time. I mean, I have degrees and I'm a credentialed professional, and hopefully you won't think otherwise based on my speech. My speech is only out of hyperbole to help people listen, because it's sort of like on social media. If it doesn't sound cool, if it's not quick, but yeah, I do think it's time to start to
Yeah.
I'm happy we're having this conversation. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. Yes. Likewise. Same here. You mentioned planting our food. I really want to dig into that, but just to dial it back a bit, you mentioned to just visit these, farms, visit these areas where they have like their agriculture or their farms there. Like, I just wanted to ask, just visiting, and of course, sometimes seeing is believing. You see how their production is, you see how their produce is, you see how the animals, the conditions of all that. But as far as like from an energy standpoint, like, what can you tell us with our foods, like having that stored energy? I know that whole process we spoke about, from especially if it's like mass production, but as far as like visiting these places yourself, like,
Oh, okay, I got you.
yeah.
I think I got you. So you're asking, I mean, I don't know. I don't have all the answers as far as that, as far as like knowing, what are you asking, like what to do as far as when you're visiting a farm, to
Well, and
what
if
to
I'm
know about a place?
just speaking of like with energy, like just seeing these things, like my whole takeaway is that when you're seeing like how appropriate things are, like, I feel like us as like the individual get a sense of relief, like, oh my gosh, like,
Yeah,
wow, like these poor animals, like, they're living a happy life, they're doing well. And I think that energy transfer is
yeah,
real, you
it's
know
real. Yes, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more with you. Yeah, the contrast. I think, just think about it. I mean, you can look at you can look at videos, you can go on Netflix and look at some of the food documentaries out there. You can
yeah.
I know I've driven by chicken farms in Tennessee, and I love Tennessee, but the chicken farms, they smell like so rotten that nobody can even
Ugh,
live within like a mile around the chicken farm. And when you're passing the chicken farm and it smells that bad, so you can,
mm,
and you can see other chickens, and if your neighbor, if you're not zoned for allowing chickens, I mean, go a few towns over, or out of the city, a little bit out of the city. It's an interesting thing what's happening right now, as far as, we all wanted to live in the city, and most people still do want to live closer to the city, and the city still does have a lot to offer, obviously, city life.
yeah.
But there's also something to the other side, which is being, out of the city, out of the congestion. There is less pollution. You talk about energy. Energy can come in every form, comes in every
Yeah.
practical form. I think it does, technically. And whether it be energy of our cell phone devices, energy of our cars, energy of our conversations, energy of our stress, energy of our people yelling at each other, who knows, whatever, you know what I mean? And yes, there's good energy among pockets among that, but
I love that example. Yeah.
I'm probably taking this deeper than you intended, but
No, I love it. Yeah, I love this example. Yeah.
yeah, so getting out into where the energy, I guess the best energy would be the energy where nature is as free to live, unencumbered by us.
Mhm.
And that energy is the energy that you want your plants, your food, your animals to be among, because that's where are going to thrive in the end, is to be. And the reason is because because that is the real good energy of this universe is the planet.
Mhm.
It's the planet that possesses it, and that's why plant foods is a trend. I'm not into trendy things because I don't do that. but
Yeah,
but I
I
do
feel you
believe in
with that.
plant-based.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna let you take like something away from me. I'm not like, I love plant-based food and I'm all about
Mhm.
plant-based. I'm not technically plant-based. Like, I don't only eat plant foods. I believe animal foods can be extremely healthy for the body, in some cases necessary for life. And I believe that as a person, but I also believe that as a 20-year veteran dietitian who studied more about nutrition than anything else by far for 20 years. So
That's a great point. Yeah, because we don't want to like scare viewers to like say like, hey, like if if most like mass meat productions aren't good, like if these animals are uncomfortable and releasing these chemicals from distress, like
yeah,
it's
you
not to
got
go
it.
vegan. It's just to like be
Maybe,
aware and strategize,
yeah, yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, I mean, it's consumption, in my opinion. It's about reducing consumption in general, meaning, we don't want to overconsume food either. We don't want to overconsume energy. We
Mm,
don't want to overconsume anything, because then it doesn't leave enough for somebody else. But
balancing it out. Yeah.
yeah, and meat is the same thing, and the more you know about nutrition, and this is where I've loved doing education for all these years, but if you understand what you need in order to support what your lifestyle is, then you can consume the right amount and not too little or too much. And
Yeah.
so, like, if you are an avid athlete, or if you are, super muscular in general, or if you are prone to have frequent flus or colds, or your immune system's run down, it, or whatever, you have a virus in your body, or there's all these reasons why somebody
Hmm.
might require, literally, if I'm a dietitian in the hospital, I'm going to require that we increase their protein, and the only, in order to heal the body. So
I had to do that personally, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
yes.
So true. Yeah.
So yeah, so sometimes the easiest, the most consolidated energetically form of energy really is going to be through your animal tissue. So
Mm.
you get the most bang for your buck, ounce per ounce wise, for animal tissue than pretty much anything else. Minus organ tissue, which of course is also animal tissue. So it's, energy is an interesting thing.
It's like the circle of life, you could say, an appreciation for what we consume, and at the same time, like it's acceptable morally because it's nature, it's nature uh, to
Yeah,
consume a
as long as
variety of our diet.
yeah, yeah, it is nature. We're part of the food chain, whether we like it or not. And
Yeah.
I don't think anyone doesn't like it, but anyways, no, we are. And yeah, I think as long as, and you asked about certifications before, as long as we're giving reverence to this animal, and this is where I actually, I don't talk about this a lot publicly, but I guess I am today. But I really actually advocate for the kosher certification. It doesn't, I'm not
Mm.
saying things have to be kosher in order for them to be good, because you don't have to have a rabbi bless your animal, but in general, if we can put that energy, that blessing into that animal for its whole life,
Mm.
and certainly its death, minimally speaking, then to me, that's the kind of animal energy, along with hopefully the animal having had a good life, not being sick, not being overtreated medically or undertreated, and that's the kind of energy I want to consume. If I'm going to consume plant or animal energy, which I think I do, I almost don't feel well if I don't have some animal energy pretty much every day, but it's not excessive, and it's always organic as much as possible. And usually it's
Yeah.
seafood and eggs. Truthfully, it's pretty much
Mm.
always eggs and seafood, and then some poultry, and then and then some of the harder to digest. I mean, you can just kind of nutrition to me, Alberto. It's kind of like common sense. It's
Yeah.
all pretty much common sense. Like,
Is
the problem.
instinctive. Yeah.
Yeah, the problem is we've gotten so far away from our food. Our food is so far away. We've stuck it out over there that we don't really know what we're eating. And we don't even have the common sense to think about it. Like, if you had cows right there and they were eating, you're like, oh, what should I have for breakfast? Oh, I think I'll have some cow. Let me go slaughter some cow. Like, would you do that? Or would you like, oh, let me see if there's eggs. Okay, there's eggs. Okay, let's have an egg or two.
Hmm.
You know, you're really hungry. Okay, you can have three, but isn't that a lot? You know, when you kind of think like that, like it's all kind of common, it will come back if we can start putting our
Yeah.
food closer to us. And then we said why local is best. We want our food closer to us, then we're influencing, it's a symbiosis of life. We know, okay, well, you know, I recently read that I think an almond takes, I don't remember the amount, but it was a shit ton of water for one almond, you know, and I'm thinking,
Wow. Look at
you know,
that.
would I really, if I had to put my water into something, is that what I'd want to eat as an, you know, almond, about a thing of almonds? So my point is that the closer that we are to our food as energy, our food,
Hmm.
our energy, then the more it all makes sense.
Especially like if it's far, it's like a lot of dealing with, like a lot of hands, a lot of different, like you pointed out earlier, like gas, like transport, like all that um affects, almost tarnishes the quality of that food.
Well, there's a cost involved. I don't know if that,
Yeah.
but
And I love that point you mentioned too with like the kosher side of blessing the animal. That's kind of what I was referencing earlier with like being local, visiting, the farms and the animals. That's a great point. Love that. Um, yeah, and just getting right now to planting our and growing our own foods. Like I love that you mentioned that because that was like another point I was gonna mention today. Um,
you're taking
yeah.
away all your talking points. Huh?
I mean, it's great because it's
Sorry.
like you could see like it's just that like that frequency, like that thought pattern. It's like there naturally, like you said, it's common sense or almost,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know.
I know. And I think of that a lot. And I don't, you know, it's just, that's why I've almost like stopped doing as much talking, is because I want to get the processes going to help. But I want to have this conversation and I want to be heard because I want people to be thinking about this stuff so that we can all do it, because I can't do it all myself, you know, but I
Yeah.
really do see what's happening I've seen it so much from a nutritionist perspective, because watching the food patterns change and the eating patterns change really does actually has given me insight into like our culture and like what's wrong with it, and thinking about all the health problems and seeing like even addictions is a topic I'd love to delve
Mm,
into further. But you know, with addictions, like, and how can we correct those addictions and stop, you know, and stop making it this big crisis, but start helping like our people, like legit,
yeah. And
you
that's so
know,
true. Yeah.
we don't need
Yeah.
to hashtag mental health crisis. We need to have spaces that, you know what I mean? It's a whole
Hmm.
conversation, so I won't say exactly what we need in one sentence, but you know, we need to help heal them, and we can do it through nutrition, and we can do it through food, but not just food alone. It's nature. It's really nature. Food is a big part. You know, nature, nutrition isn't. I say this a lot. Nutrition isn't possible without nature. You know, and it's so we need nature. That's my number one. But nutrition is a
Yeah.
big part of that. And how we eat affects how we feel and how we age and how we sleep and how we you know, and it can't just be like, you know, all healthy. Oh, I'm so healthy. Like, I don't want to just be healthy. Like, I want to be
Hmm.
happy too, but I don't want to just be happy and like gluttonous. I want to be both. And so, like, how do you blend those two so that you can live, you know, you can
Yeah.
live a healthy and a happy life through what you're consuming, and maybe even continue to, like I said, up level to get some of those really special foods into the body that can help us to really, you know, start to have extra energy in order to back to energy to achieve new things, so that
Hmm.
we're and still, you know, and still feel good, of course.
Yeah. And that's cool that you're in that path other than like, talking about it in different ways that you do that. You're actually acting out to do some community stuff, I imagine,
Yeah,
with like, growing foods and collaborating. That's
yeah.
that's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
awesome. It is awesome. I'm thankful, you know, and
Yeah.
I think that, yeah, but I think we all, you and I were I was mentioning to you, you know, we used to, you know, we're very blessed in this country, and we will continue to be, I think, if we do the right things. But sometimes I think we forget that, you know, humans didn't always have like so much space and so much, and such conveniences as food, and, to just go by and order on Alexa, your Whole Foods order.
Yeah.
But, but I think that getting away from that has hurt us like on a health level, on a physical and mental health level. I feel that, not just
Hmm.
me, I'm watching other people, I'm reading and I'm seeing my clients, I'm hearing their words, but I'm saying it's affected us all. So I think that the answer in homeopathy, not, this is sort of a tangent, but what do they say? That which hurts heals. That which hurts
Mm.
heals is the homeopathic. So, like for instance, if you get stung by a rattlesnake or bit by a rattlesnake, then the venom they collect it, they masticate it, they shake and they tritillate and they do this whole process in order to get the energy out of it. And then that's how you heal the rattlesnake bite.
Wow.
Yeah, and then you take it sublingually or whatever in little pellets. But my point is that which help, so the same thing that's hurting us right now, our food, to a large degree, and it is our food hurting us to a large degree.
Hmm.
It's not just the computers and the stress. Those things contribute for sure. And and it's not just that, it's also the food, and it's both ways. But yeah, we're getting neurotoxins into our bodies through metals, through chemicals, things like MSG, things like artificial
Mm.
colors and flavors, which make things look good and easily marketed and like make it a quick, easy sell. Like, oh yeah, it's blue, it looks
It's
delicious.
adorable.
You know,
It's wow. And then you see like very tiny little words that they're forced to put in the back that's
yeah,
showing you these
right.
colorings. Yeah.
And then it's
Wow.
like that you don't see the words for, because there's all kinds of legal loopholes out there. But yeah, so the
Hmm.
idea is to, and that's not local, is it? But if it was, it wouldn't be like that. It really wouldn't.
Exactly.
If your neighbor was making popsicles and offered you one, it would probably be with real juice, at
Hmm.
least minimally. So again, you can just kind of increase your trust factor, I think, as you get more local, just because our own energy, I mean, it's just a survival thing, I think. But
Yeah.
yeah, I hope I haven't dug like went too away from the point of nutrition, but I've been talking about nutrition for so long, and I get kind of
Oh
bored just
no, I
talking
love
about
it.
nutrition.
I love it. Yeah. I mean, this is my goal for my channel. It's like to dig deeper, it's just like they say, like, try to stay woke as possible and not, routine based and oblivious to things,
Yeah,
to be like ahead of the curve. And one of the points you mentioned, a minute ago was like trying to find ways to grow our own food in our living spaces. And I love that because, for me right now, I don't have a big backyard. I'm in an apartment, but past year, like I really got captivated to being independent and getting things that's actually fresh and gardening itself. Like I took a passion to that. And, right now, like I'm growing my lentils and it's like succeeding. It's not withering. So like I'm happy
so
that I'm
cool.
successful,
Yeah,
you know?
nice.
Yeah,
That's such a
tomatoes.
great point you make. That is such a great point you make. That your head makes you happy to see that growing.
That's my
Like
point.
we want to see things around us growing. Like not only does it actually naturally, I don't know how biologically we just have this thing that it makes us actually feel happy, but it also makes us more secure to know, that's going to create happiness, security. Talk about reducing anxiety through food. Well, how about we start growing it? Wouldn't that decrease your own anxiety by just
Exactly.
having it in front of you, like and taking care of something every day?
And you're doing
Doesn't
something with
that?
your hands too. Like that helps,
Yeah,
grounding, that helps with
yeah.
grounding. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not like it's a win, 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 win. There's like a no, there's a like it's a continuous win, That's what I mean by that. To
And
grow
I
your
wanted
own.
to, yeah, and I wanted to like get your take about like ways to like grow foods. Like, do you have any from your experience, do you have like any knowledge on like trying find ways to grow, vegetables and fruits, like especially if you're limited, if you're more in a confined space.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so I haven't grown a lot of food, to be very 100% honest with you. I've been part of certain garden projects and things. I moved, I moved to a house to be able to grow. So I'm about to get going and get growing. But I do have suggestions anyways, because I've thought it all through, and I have, and I do have some stuff growing myself here. So as far as like, I can tell you that first of all, start small. You could start small. You don't have to start with a whole garden. You could just have a couple pots. So you can kind of like, like with a diet change, you might not want to go all, all or nothing. You might want to just start a little bit. So so I would say do that, just start with your favorite herbs, your favorite maybe the lettuces. You can actually, one of the best and easiest ways to start would be to take the butt, it's called, of the lettuce, or of scallions, or of celery even, and just put in some water and let it I guess propagate. I don't know if that's the right word, but let those little roots grow in
It'll
the
start
water.
sprouting back up again, like
Yep.
potato. Like I know that happens. And the
Yep.
lettuce bud, like you said.
Yep.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Get started and just get the process started is what I would say, if you're not doing anything right now. But yes, there's all kinds of ways to overcome space challenges. That's without a doubt. Obviously there's windowsills, but there's different vertical systems that are being innovated right now. There's obviously the garden towers, which are, probably the most well-known, and but also very expensive. So if that's not in the budget, then, there's other ways. And I think we can even get like kids creating, or we can create for ourselves, and there already are created like little vertical systems with literally just a little plastic flower pot and then like rope. And so it waters the whole system. I can't tell you any names at this moment, but I'll try to have those for you soon. But yeah, there's ways to do it. So I wouldn't let space be a challenge, be a blockade to getting started, for sure.
And I love you mentioning kids too, because it's like that's almost something that's so productive and it's so fun. Like kids have fun working with their hands, getting their hands dirty, rather than like so much technology. I think that's a great point, like for kids to take part in like gardening, or trying to establish a community-based thing. That's awesome.
Totally. I've had this theory, Alberto, for like many years now, and I taught a lot of cooking classes for kids, and I want to continue doing that with my company. But basically, if we could get our kids cooking, then it would like alleviate so many problems, because then the parents would be able to eat healthier because they're, and there's, it would reduce the time consumption aspect. It would get them doing something productive. It would teach them a skill that they need to know. It's another win-win-win, getting our kids cooking, but also with that, also gardening and planting, because and it doesn't, I know you and I have touched on some of these things before, but it doesn't have to be like slave labor, where we stopped, making kids have to work because it was too much, because people were having babies just to have labor, 100 years ago, hundreds of years ago. No, I'm not talking about anything like that, but we've kind of gone again to the opposite extreme, which is, letting them think that a video game is life. A video game is not life. It doesn't support life. It doesn't breed life. It does nothing for life. And life is what we need to live. So yeah, I think that if we can get them growing, we're going to get a lot of things achieved by one simple act of getting them in the garden, getting them in, the kitchen, and getting us kind of more like organized together, learning, and it being like a cool thing that we're all cooking together. And that's something that I've seen change. Like, conversations about nutrition in the past, I'd be in a room having, and people would always ask me since I started, different things about nutrition. And some people like leave the room because they just don't want to be a part of that conversation. And that's changed. Now, like, everybody like wants to be a part of that conversation. That's funny. But, but it wasn't cool. So I think we need to continue to press that cool factor forward. So like, it's cool for like the kids everyone to be gardening. And I think that's already happening. So I'm not saying that it's not happening. I'm just thinking that, if we could,
expose it more.
Just into our psyche, the better, because and into our normal life. And
in case of shortages as well too,
huge issue that so there's a lot of things happening in the world today, and I don't want to stress about it. I don't want you to stress about it, but I also don't want to err on the side of like, oh no, like let's totally just go out for margaritas, like because then like, we aren't going to be prepared, if we do that with all of our free time. So I think that that's the real cool thing, is if you can kind of, like I said, I like a happy and a healthy life, nutrition wise, but if we can combine like some fun work that actually prepares us for the future with, fun, food traditions, I think, we can make this stuff happen. And it does start and end with the energy.
I love that. Yeah. Well, yeah, that pretty much covers things on my end. If Hopefully it was as pleasant for you as it was for me, because I mean I love just like, you know, digging into these topics, you know, really trying to find things out. And again, like I just want to touch on the energy point, like doing things as a family, you know, even if you don't have children yet, or you don't plan to, but if you have a niece or nephew or somebody, like just growing your own stuff, like it'll be such a beautiful thing. Like it'll create memories. And I think that itself, like especially when you're consuming it with such like pride in a good way, because words, you know, have meanings, but you know, that pride, that like accomplishment, I think that's beautiful, you know. And that really just adds value in nutrition as well.
Totally. Yeah, I would just add one thing to what you said. You said neighbor, like grab a neighbor, grab somebody on the, you know, I mean, we have to kind of all be doing this together anyway. So, you know, we're supposed to be loving our neighbors, we're supposed to be loving our food, and we're all supposed to be doing it together. And I don't think we're that far away, and it is beautiful.
Yeah, that pretty much covers my video, my end. Yeah, thank you so much, Rachel. Again, I don't know if you want to like close off with anything. Uh, I know you gave me plenty, and I'm so thankful for your time today. You know, really appreciate it. Like, I hope the viewers have a lot of like knowledge and ideas and inspiration from all of your words. Thank you.
Anytime. Thank you. I appreciate the chance to do it too. So yeah, it was a pleasure.
Yeah, and I can't wait. Hopefully, we'll get more topics going off regarding nutrition itself.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
with you.
All right, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much. And don't forget, leave a like, leave a subscribe to stay tuned for more. And yeah, I'll leave some more info in the description box in this video. Take care.